Good afternoon, everybody. I think you can all hear me on this webinar today. I thank you for taking the time and joining us. I'm sorry for the slight technical delay as we get everything in place here. You know, the company has had a very successful year. We've done a lot of hard work in an environment, I think, that was very difficult given the increased cost structure and exploration. Given the increased capital costs on all types of labor and exploration, such as drilling. I think as a company, we've progressed and we've advanced on a number of different fronts this year, and I'll share some of those with you before I get into a full presentation of the company. So our accomplishments of this year, we really expanded the Gravel Creek footprint, which I think was very important for the company. We grew the Garbage Discovery Zone, which is really only 100 meters away from the Gravel Creek deposit itself. That was significant in that it offers us the opportunity to quickly increase that resource here in the short term. We also prepared Wood Gulch for drilling. If you saw our news release on Monday, we announced the new Wood Gulch target. That is immediately to the west of the Gravel Creek discovery and underneath the old Wood Gulch mine that was mined by Homestake in the 80s and the 90s. So we've got significant exploration potential in front of us to continue to expand the Gravel Creek resource. At Doby George, we advanced towards a PEA that will be completed in Q2 of this year. That could become a near-term development project for the company. I think it's important to note that at Doby George, we have a resource of about 500,000 ounces. So getting that to a stage of development for near-term production is very important for the company. We completed exploration efforts with no lost time injuries or accidents or any environmental incidents. I think that's very important as well. And we strive to maintain a high occupation rate with our employees. We like to see them go home safe at the end of the day. I think it's important to all our employees and the families that they leave back at home. We've increased our trading liquidity in both Canada and the United States. I think if you looked at our share structure at the start of the year, we were trading maybe 5,000 or 6,000 shares per day. We are now up to about 30,000 shares per day. And because of that and the increased share price performance of the company, we were named to the OTC Best 50 list for 2025. So very important accomplishments for the company. And where that leaves us, I think, going into 2025 is in a position where we are focused on expanding the resources, as we said, at Gravel Creek, but also de-risking the Doby George asset. So I'm going to put up a presentation and we'll walk through how we're going to do that throughout the course of 2025. And at the end, we'll discuss in a little bit more detail on the goals for the year, and then I'll open it up for any questions that anybody might have. So bear with me while I put this presentation up. So Western Exploration, when you think about the company, it's very unique in the junior mining space, where we have 3 high-grade gold deposits on one project. The Doby George asset that we mentioned briefly is going through to a PEA. And the Gravel Creek and Wood Gulch are still advanced exploration projects. But all of those projects offer us the opportunity to increase the valuation of our company for our shareholders. And we'll look at each one of these deposits throughout the presentation. And again, we'll discuss how we're moving forward with them during the course of the 2025 campaign. Some cautionary notes. I'll leave everybody to read those. This webinar will be posted on our website, as will the presentation, so you can review it in detail on our website. So what does Western Exploration offer as an opportunity to investors and shareholders? First of all, it's high grade. I think we all recognize that high grade offers you advanced leverage to gold price in any gold price environment. It offers you the opportunity as well for a high production as far as ounces go, but a lower footprint. You do not need the size and scale of a processing facility for high-grade deposits that you need for lower-grade deposits. So we have about 1.32 million gold equivalent ounces. That's fully 43-101 compliant. And that's across the Gravel Creek, Doby George, and Wood Gulch deposits. And we'll get into the details on each one of those resources individually. Again, we're in Nevada, top mining jurisdiction in the world. And not only are we in Nevada, but we have road access and we're adjacent major producer. So that road access and infrastructure gives us the advantage of developing the project on a very cost-efficient basis. The world-class management team, some of them are on this call with me today, comes from principally Yamana and Meridian Gold, where we worked together in the past. Mark Hawksworth, VP of Exploration, John Cleary, our senior consulting geologist, Nicole Cowles, and Curtis Turner, all have backgrounds with major producers and major exploration companies. And that's some of the expertise that we apply daily to our thinking on how we advance the exploration project at Aura. The team has been involved in significant discoveries. You can see them there. We think this is important as we understand, and the way we approach our exploration daily is, what do we need to do and what does it take to get these discoveries into production? And I think that is a very important concept that we apply daily, is what we do in exploration, does it lead us closer to getting these into a development and ultimately production? We have near-term expansion potential at all our deposits. I think that's important. It isn't stagnant. We've got a resource base that we think will continue to grow. And by continuing to grow that resource, certainly we're going to continue to increase the valuation of the company for our shareholders and stakeholders. We have excellent precious metal endowment. I think, again, it's unique in the junior mining space. Doby George is similar to other Carlin-type deposits in the area. Jarrett Canyon and Big Springs are two of those. The combined resource and production between Jarrett Canyon, Big Springs, and our Doby George deposit is close to 15 million ounces of gold. Gravel Creek is analogous to Nevada, northern Nevada epithermal deposits like Midas and Sleeper. I know not everybody's familiar with those, but they are two of Nevada's highest grade past producers, producing gold in excess of 30 grams per ton gold, or 1 ounce per ton. So very significant that we've got two different mineralization styles going across the project, and it offers us the opportunity for exploration of not only Carlin-type deposits, but significant epithermal deposits. So where we're located, you can see on the map, we're just north of Jarrett Canyon and Big Springs. The property covers about 62 square kilometers. The mineral claims are 100% owned by the company, so there's no joint venture payments or option payments due. We have access to private fee land that's right near Doby George. So as we move forward with the Doby George PEA, a lot of the infrastructure will be placed on that private fee land, and that should allow for ease of permitting. You can see the road access from Elko, which is 55 kilometers to the south of Jarrett Canyon. Our office is at the north end in Mountain City, so very well located to infrastructure such as all-season highways. The project itself is just south of Mountain City. You can see on a well-maintained gravel road with roads accessing both the Doby George Gravel Creek deposits. Infrastructure in place. We have water wells that are permitted by the state of Nevada for water that we use for exploration right now. We'd look to upgrade those moving forward to development. And the power grid comes down the gravel road from the main highway to within about 5 kilometers of Gravel Creek and about 10 kilometers of Doby George. The project has been continuously permitted by the United States Forest Service since 1997, and we currently have a plan of operation that is valid until 2028 for Doby George and 2029 for Gravel Creek, and those are renewable thereafter. I think it's important to understand that this project has been continuously permitted that length of time, and not only continuously permitted, but in 2017, the company did win an award from the state of Nevada for concurrent reclamation, and we were nominated by the United States Forest Service for that award. So that just goes to the good working relationship we have with the regulatory agencies here in the state. So the Aura project, you can see there on the right, it is off the Maggie Summit Road that is the dark gray line, and you can see the access to Doby George, about 1 kilometer off the main road, and Saddle, Wood Gulch, and Gravel Creek, which are about 5 kilometers off the main road. So again, very easy access. That map shows the location of the water wells we referred to, one at Doby George, one at Gravel Creek. So we've got water, very good road access, as we mentioned before. Doby George, you can see there to the left-hand side of the slide, or to the west in blue, about 525,000 ounces in both mineral categories, indicated and inferred, the average grade closing in on about 1 gram per ton. Importantly, at Doby George, you can see that orange highlighted area. That is the private fee land that comes very close to the current deposit. And we would look to put all the infrastructure in that private fee land that we control under a mineral lease agreement with Nevada Gold Mines joint venture. Under that agreement, we are able to purchase that land at any time up until the end of 2031 for the purpose of building a mine or for accessing that area for drilling, water, etc. At Gravel Creek, underground high-grade sulfide deposit, we'll get into some of its similarities to these other high-grade sulfide deposits in Nevada. But for now, just mentioning that we have almost 700,000 ounces in the current resource, 43101 compliant, at a grade of about 5 to 5.5 gram per ton gold equivalent. We do talk about gold equivalent at Saddle, Wood Gulch, and Gravel Creek, where we have silver as well as gold. At Doby George, it is gold only with no silver. Wood Gulch was a past producing mine. It was operated by Homestake between 1988 and 1991. It's at surface. It was mined as an open pit. They mined about 100,000 ounces of gold. We're not sure about what the recovery was. We do not have those records. But currently we have a remnant resource around the old pit of about 105,000 ounces gold equivalent. And that is expandable through additional drilling. So that's kind of a layout of the property and where the deposits are located. And on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about each of the deposits individually. So when we look at those, we talked about the similarities, that they're on the same project, but that they're very different in occurrence style. And you can see Doby George in blue. It's a Carlin type sediment hosted deposit, which is what Nevada is famous for. Its analogies are Jarrett Canyon and Big Springs, which are just located about 10 to 25 kilometers to the south. We've got the same rocks that go from Big Springs up to Doby George. Big Springs in the past produced almost 500,000 ounces of gold and has a current resource of about 1.2 million ounces of gold. Jarrett Canyon, on the other hand, has produced about 9 million ounces of gold and has a current resource of about 2 million ounces. So the rocks are very similar. The style of mineralization and the age are very similar. And the potential development scenario for us at Doby George is similar to what Jarrett Canyon and Big Springs have done, which is an open pit heap leach process. Jarrett Canyon, in its later years, developed into a sulfide deposit after they exhausted the oxide. And certainly we see that potential going forward at Doby George. Beneath the oxide, the deposit remains wide open. So what we're doing right now is a PEA that we expect to complete in Q2. And then shortly after that, commence the PFS, utilizing the work out of the PEA to get to a full PFS statement, hopefully by the start of 2026, the end of Q1. Talking about Doby George as well, its analogs to Jarrett Canyon and Big Springs, I think it's important to mention that both Jarrett Canyon and Big Springs are permitted operations that are on the same Forest Service ground that we have our claims on. So both of those operations have been permitted by the Forest Service, and Big Springs was permitted in 2017 for an operation. So certainly in recent history, it demonstrates the ability to get these deposits permitted within the Forest Service. Infrastructure we talked about, and the permitting we talked about there as well. So at Gravel Creek and Wood Gulch, different in geologic style, they're volcanic hosted epithermal deposits, and they're more analogous to both Sleeper, Midas, Jarbidge, the National Mine, which are some of the highest grade mine deposits in North America. We were just looking at some public data on the National Mine, and it was showing various stopes that were producing gold at over 30 ounce per ton gold. So these things can be very high grade. They're traditionally not very wide or very big, but because of that grade, they become very significant producers. We'd look at Gravel Creek and Wood Gulch as underground mining scenarios. Certainly with Gravel Creek, it occurs about 400 meters below surface to the top and about 800 meters at its deepest. We've developed a very good processing technique at Gravel Creek through flotation. We can recover about 95 to 96% of the gold and between 90 and 95% of the silver to a very high grade concentrate that averages about 3 ounce per ton gold and over 50 ounce per ton silver. So with that information, we're moving to update the technical report in Q2. That'll be done about the same time as the PEA for Doby George is completed. And then we're moving to about an 8,000 meter drill program this year, focused on that new Wood Gulch area. And hopefully we'll be expanding as well the Jarbidge discovery zone that we drilled this year at the same time. So let's talk a little bit about why we're so excited about Gravel Creek. We do believe that Gravel Creek is the next significant high-grade epithermal discovery in Nevada. Why we believe that? If you look at the analogs that are listed there, Midas, Sleeper, Delamar, Jarbidge, the commonality they have with the discovery we've made at Gravel Creek is age, mineralogy, location, and geology. All of these deposits share those things in common. If you look at Midas and Gravel Creek, and bear in mind, Midas is only about 100 kilometers to the west of Gravel Creek, and you can see it there on that map in M. The Sleeper is SL, National District in N, the Delamar to the north in Idaho at DE. But if you look at Gravel Creek and Midas, which is the closest deposit to us, they're both of the same age. We know that now from Gravel Creek. We've been working with the United States Geological Survey on understanding the Gravel Creek deposit, and they did age dating on it, and it's 15.4 million years old. Same age as Midas, Sleeper, Delamar, Jarbidge. The grades we're seeing up to 257 gram per ton gold equivalent at Gravel Creek are very similar to what you see at Midas, where the mine averaged about 40 gram per ton gold equivalent over its lifetime. Why we've got that range of grade? We've only got 19 holes in our high-grade Jarbidge discovery at this point and less than 100 in the total deposit. So we don't have that depth of knowledge yet that, you know, a past producing mine like Midas has, but certainly we're seeing the grades that are comparable to Midas on both the gold and the silver front. The width of mineralization, you know, these high-grade veins tend to be a little bit narrower than what some people would see in some of the higher or the lower grade heap leachable deposits. So we're seeing widths at Gravel Creek of between 0.3 and 6 meters, which is roughly the same as what they saw at Midas. And importantly, Midas, during its history as an operating gold mine, it had an average width of mineralization of about 5 feet or 1.5 meters. So we're right in that range as well with Midas. And again, you can see the difference in drill holes. We're just getting to really understand the high-grade Jarbidge discovery with only 19 drill holes. And the Gravel Creek resource itself, which is wider, it's about 20 meters wide and 5 grams per ton, there's only 80 holes in that deposit. So given the limited amount of drilling we have at this point, we do have a resource, but we're just starting to get to understand the geometry and the tenor of the grade that we're seeing at the Gravel Creek deposit. So when we look at what we did this year at Gravel Creek, one of our accomplishments was really expanding this Jarbidge discovery. And again, it's only about 100 meters to the east of the main Gravel Creek deposit. So any future development, you could do them together. The Gravel Creek deposit, Jarbidge discovery would be one mine kind of thing. You can see in yellow there, the area that we drilled out. We were very aggressive with the drilling. We did 80-meter step outs. You'll quite often see when you're doing infill drilling, you're getting this to a resource level, drill spacings of 25 to 40 meters. What we tried to demonstrate this year with our drilling was not that the mineralization holds together with narrow step outs, but that this has a footprint to become a significant part of a future Gravel Creek resource. I think we've demonstrated with this drill step out that metric exists at Gravel Creek. If you look at the drilling, we've got up to 257 gram per ton gold and over 4,380 gram per ton silver in our drill holes this year. So very significant values, akin again to what we've seen in other high-grade deposits in northern Nevada. The Jarbidge discovery remains open in all directions. The northernmost hole you can see there, WG417, we intersected 3 meters of 40 gram per ton gold and over 1 kilo of silver. Nothing drilled to the north of that. So still wide open for expansion to the north. And to the south, WG458, which we drilled this year, you can see we hit 4 different intersections to the south with a high grade of about 15.4 gram per ton gold equivalent. So it's wide open to the north and south, and we have not closed it off in the dip direction, which is about 250 meters up and down at this point. So this is a very significant discovery immediately adjacent to current resource at Gravel Creek. So it gives us another target around Gravel Creek where we can expand that resource through additional drilling. So looking at it in context with Gravel Creek, you can see on the slide on the right, the red is the Gravel Creek. Again, these are half-gram mineralized domains. So this is not the resource as it would look at a normal cutoff of 2 to 3 grams, but it's done at a scale to just show how the two deposits sit in context to each other. And you can see Gravel Creek there in red. and the Jarbidge discovery in yellow. So you can see how close it is to the Gravel Creek discovery. And they, at one point, they're almost connecting. So I think, again, what we're trying to say is given the grades, and you can see them in that table there on the bottom, grades this year that we've seen over intersections of up to 50 gram per ton silver in hole 460 with 2 kilos of silver, or 50 grams gold and 2 kilos of silver. So very significant grades. It's not closed off in any direction, and there's only 19 drill holes to date. So this gives us a lot of room to still grow this deposit and connect it up with the Gravel Creek discovery going forward. So we just put out a news release on Monday looking at the old Wood Gulch area. And I think, as we looked at Gravel Creek, we thought, where can we add value in the short term through drilling to increase the resource? The Jarbidge discovery was the first area. And now we're looking at the underexplored past producer Wood Gulch. And you can see in that slide, there was about 423,000 tons at almost 4 gram per ton gold and 23 gram per ton silver that was mined between 1988 and 1990. That deposit was what led to the discovery of Gravel Creek. The geologists who mapped that looked at the alteration at Gravel Creek and said the same controls for Wood Gulch go right under Gravel Creek. The first hole at Gravel Creek intersected the deposit, hole 373. So when we came back and we looked at Wood Gulch and Saddle, we see a lot of similarities to what we're seeing at Gravel Creek in the Jarbidge high-grade area, not only in grade, but in geology, in mineralogy. They're very similar in all contexts that we'd look for as an exploration target. There's only 3 holes that are drilled around there. You can see them on that map, 355, 360, and 421. And in that table on the bottom left, you can see the context of the kind of grades we're seeing, not intersecting the main Thomasina fault, which we think is the main feeder zone to the Wood Gulch, Saddle, and deposits. So the deposits themselves, Wood Gulch has been mined, so we know the grade, we know roughly the context of the geology. Holes 355, 360, and 421 did not intersect the structure, but were near it, but all showed anomalous gold grades up to 10.9 gram per ton gold and over 100 gram per ton silver. So we know that the system is strongly altered. It's the same rocks as Gravel Creek, the same age as Gravel Creek, and the same style as mineralization. The other attractive feature of Wood Gulch is it's only 100 to 300 meters below surface. So it's a lot shallower than Gravel Creek, but it also has a strike length of almost 3 kilometers. So given the strike length, given that it's very similar to Gravel Creek, and given that it's a lot shallower, it offers us an opportunity to do some near-term exploration and add another resource area to the Gravel Creek deposit. So we look at a pathway to resource growth. Certainly Gravel Creek remains open, and you can see that here on this slide. Below the Gravel Creek deposit, there's a yellow area. That has never been closed off by drilling. You can see that deep drill hole is still indicated resource. So we think Gravel Creek still remains open along strike and down dip as a deposit. The Jarbidge discovery, you can see there, was intersected in 19 holes. All 19 holes have hit at least one assay interval over 1 ounce per ton gold and very high silver. So that remains open along strike and up dip. And then lastly, but not leastly, we've now expanded to the Wood Gulch area, where we think the mineralization style, the geology, and the geochemistry are identical to the Gravel Creek deposit. And I think it's very important to understand that in epithermal districts, a lot of these deposits occur in series or swarms of veins and structures. And we think that the Thomasina fault and the Gravel Creek fault are about the same age, and they're both showing similar styles of mineralization. So you can see at Wood Gulch how that target below the Saddle resource in the old Wood Gulch pit has never been drill tested. So that remains open for additional resource expansion going forward. We're going to switch now to Doby George. We don't talk a lot about Doby George, but that means we're not working hard on that resource area. Right now, we're working with Kappas, Cassidy and Associates on completing that PEA study. On this slide, you can see this is from the previous 43-101, so this is not the current study yet. That'll be completed, as we said, in early Q2. But in the previous study at $1,800 gold, you can see the pits there in blue, and you can see the resource in gold and red. The resource in gold is above the cutoff at 0.3, and the red is above 2 gram per ton. So very continuous mineralization that's been defined by over 800 drill holes. It has a strike length of about 1.8 kilometers, and the width of the mineralization is locally between 20 to 40 meters. So it's very significant at surface gold deposits with very high grades. The heap leach recoveries, we've done a lot of work on column leach tests. We've got over 30 columns that have been completed, and it's showing an average leach recovery of about 70% at a half-inch crush size. So, about a tertiary crush size, but with recoveries that are within the acceptable economic range. The infrastructure, as we said, the road passes within a kilometer of the deposit, and the hydropower comes within about 5 kilometers of the deposit. The private fee land is located to that lower left corner of that slide, and that is where we'd look to put most of the infrastructure to assist with a faster permitting process on this project. We do have untested areas of mineralization. You can see that Blizzard Point area. That is not been fully drilled out or interpreted, and it remains open for expansion to the northeast and east. And you can see at the bottom of the slide some deep holes where we've got some high-grade mineralization in the sulfide deposit. So the sulfides below the oxides remain wide open for expansion. We're working and we're focusing on the oxide of this deposit right now. But longer term, what we know about all these Carlin-type deposits is the oxide is typically the tip of the iceberg. You get into the oxides, you build your plant, and as you advance the operation and you continue to drill it, you end up finding or defining the sulfide resource below these pits. None of that work has been done here. There are a few holes at depth that indicate that the sulfide mineralization has continuity. So longer term, there is potential to expand the Gravel Creek or the Doby George deposit into that sulfide zone. But staying on the oxide, if we look at the resource grade of Doby George compared to other operations and other development projects within northern Nevada, you can see on this slide where Doby George fits into the upper quartile of those deposits. The heap leach are in blue. The gray are the milled deposits. So those are typically at a higher cutoff because they require milling. But if you look at only the heap leach, which are the blue, again, you can see how we're in that upper quartile of deposits and comparable in grade to some of the deposits that have been transacted in the most recent 2 or 3 year period. Railroad and Pinion, you can see here at 0.75, was purchased by Orla about 1.5 years ago, and Goldfield at 0.93 was purchased by Centerra about 2 years ago. So we're right in that range where we think we've got an opportunity here to build one of the higher grade oxide resources in an at-surface deposit in Nevada that has not been developed at this point. So a little bit about the management team. I've been rambling on here, but there is a lot of other people that support the company and the work that we do. I'll talk a little bit about myself. Previous to coming to Western, I was the Executive Vice President of Yamana Gold in charge of technical services and exploration. Before that, I was the Senior Vice President of Exploration for Yamana. Yamana and Meridian, its predecessor, were involved in a number of discoveries, which I was fortunate enough to work on with a very disciplined exploration team in Chile and in Mexico. And that Mexican exploration team that discovered Mercedes was led by Mark Hawksworth, who is our Director and General Manager of Exploration at site. So Mark was in charge of the exploration and took it right from grassroots discovery through development and all the way into construction at Mercedes. And then when we were at Yamana, he was the exploration lead for Yamana at the Odyssey and East Malartic discovery, which was about 5 million ounces when Mark was there and has since ballooned to over 20 million ounces. Curtis Turner is our VP of Finance or our Chief Financial Officer, but he's been VP Finance and former executive at Argonaut Gold and Meridian Gold. And Nicole Cowles, who's on the call, was Director of Investor Relations at Argonaut Gold. All of our team is located in Reno. So we see each other on a daily basis. It's an easy commute to our project. And I would just add, I know John Cleary is on the call, and John is our senior consulting geologist, and John has been involved with this program since the late 90s. So the combination of John with his expertise on the project and Mark with his expertise on taking these grassroots discoveries development, we've got one of the strongest exploration teams in Nevada. Capital structure of the company. We think that our best asset is our project. Our second best asset is our capital structure. We've only got about 45.4 million shares outstanding. We value respecting our shareholders' interest in the company and not diluting that wildly. We think with the capital structure of the company, it's something to be protected. So as we go forward to finance exploration in the future, we're always looking at how to do that in the most cost-effective and lowest cost of capital way. So as shareholders, you can rest assured that we are concerned about dilution in the market. We are concerned about how we do that. But I think we're trying to protect the capital structure of the company because we do consider it one of our highest grade assets in the company. You can see our shareholder breakdown on the right. Golconda LLC is a little bit unique here that it was the company that funded Western Exploration when it was private. They invested about $30 million into the program that made the discovery of Gravel Creek and got it to its first resource. So they own about 44% of the company. It's a group of about 70 high net worth individuals and family offices. And they've been shareholders in the company since 2013 when it was private. Agnico Eagle has about 14% of the company, and they've funded at least 3 work programs for Western Exploration. They do sit on a technical committee with the company, so they are part and parcel of how we evaluate the exploration programs as we move forward. Another major institutional investor of ours is Oramet. They own about 5% of the equity, and they've been involved in the company and every private placement that we've done since we've been private. So a very supportive group in Oramet. The board and management own 3% directly, but they own about another 3% of the company through Golconda when they invested in as a private enterprise. So very tightly held share structure, but I think at the same time, very supportive shareholders that have been able to participate in the majority of our financings in the last 2 years. So looking at the project in general, why we think it's a world-class opportunity, we do have potential for expansion. I think that's how you demonstrate future valuation increases and shareholder value going forward in exploration companies. You need to grow the resource. You need to have the areas where you can grow that resource, and we think we have that in spades. We have a high-quality asset. Not only do we have resource growth, but high-grade resource growth, and not only from one deposit, but 3. So that gives you a lot of optionality for success when you have 3 different targets you can be drilling. We have excellent precious metal endowment. There's an old saying in the industry, the best way to find a deposit in the shadow of a head frame. We are definitely in the shadow of head frames here. We're in the top mining jurisdiction, and we've got an experienced management team. Although past success doesn't guarantee future success, it's sure a good measuring stick. And this team has been very successful in the past of not only discovering deposits and taking them to constructions, but building companies. So upcoming catalysts and what we're going to be doing this year. We're completing that PEA on Doby George. We're going to look to that PEA to really demonstrate a new value opportunity within the company. I think people look at Doby George and they see a resource, but what we're trying to get to is that next step, that resource not only exists on paper, but it exists in a format that we think can demonstrate future value creation for the company through the development and operation of that asset. We're completing a technical report on the full project. That'll come out at the same time as that PEA. And we look forward to starting an 8,000-meter drill program at Wood Gulch, Gravel Creek this summer and fall. Again, that drill program is going to hopefully focus on 2 different targets, Wood Gulch, which would be near surface, new target, and the further delineation of the Jarbidge Rye Lake discovery deposit. So that's kind of what we see as upcoming catalysts within the next 3 to 6 months. And our goals broader than that are to, protect this corporate capital structure that we've worked hard to defend and hard to build. Again, we look to having a very safe year with no lost time accidents or environmental incidents. And then based on a positive PEA at Doby George, we'd certainly look to get that PFS started at Doby George and continue to de-risk that deposit through baseline studies and that pre-feasibility study to continue to increase the valuation for our shareholders. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the presentation. I thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't ramble on too much, but I'd invite the moderators to open it up for any questions, and I'm happy to take any questions that the group might have. Yes. So I got a question here from Grace. When you say technical report, does that include a resource update? Yes, it does. The reason we're doing a full technical report on the project is because under 43-101, if the project is contiguous, you have to update the entirety of the project. So as we move the PEA at Doby George, it requires that we updated everything at Gravel Creek. That said, we are looking at trying to incorporate as much of this new garbage discovery into a resource, a technical report. And we're working on that right now, but there's no guarantee that that drill spacing, those big wide 80-meter step outs, will make it into a resource, but we're hoping some of it does. So got a question here. The cost for Nevada Gold Mines private land next to Doby George. There is no fixed cost, but it is an agricultural value for similar land in Nevada, which is somewhere between $200 and $1,000 per acre. That fee land that we have is about 2,000 acres. We wouldn't need all of it, but certainly we've got the guarantee there that we can buy it as we need it. So question on how many tons per day are we evaluating at Doby George? It's a balancing act between mine life and payback. So you want a mine life that's sustainable over time, but you want to make sure that the payback, you take the risk off the table through a quicker payback. So right now we're looking at between 5,000 and 7,500 ton per day at Doby George. And I think it'll probably be towards that higher end of 7,500 ton per day. As we look at that as well, it's going to come back to, how efficient is it going to be to operate at that level, given the available resources you have, which are labor, water, power, et cetera. So right now it looks like we're settling on about 7,500 ton per day. So a question here, with the team we have now, could we see a scenario where we personally take Doby George to production? We need to strengthen the team. The team that is here is very disciplined in exploration. It's very disciplined in cost control and finance. Curtis Turner was the controller of El Peñon when we built El Peñon. Mark and I were both involved in taking projects from exploration development. So certainly we have part of the team. We need to strengthen the team from a little bit on the financial side, but more importantly on the production and the operation side. But I see a scenario where the size of the project would not scare our company from doing it. Again, we'll know when that PEA comes out and what capital estimates and look like. But at this time, we have, we have not made the decision to operate it on our own. So question about the drill program coming up, number of drills, diamond drilling versus RC drilling. Certainly, as we look at doing anything in garbage rhyolite, it's got to be diamond drilling. The depth of that mineralization is between 500 and 700 meters. So that requires diamond drilling to get to that depth. And if we were to do that, we'd be looking at 3 or 4 holes, as many as maybe 6 or 7 holes, depends on the finances of the company this year. And on Wood Gulch, it would be predominantly reverse circulation drilling at this point. The reverse circulation drilling is a lot lower cost than diamond drilling. But because we're only drilling to depths of maybe 400 meters at the deepest, we can do that with reverse circulation drilling, and it's probably between a third and a half the cost of the diamond drilling. And because of that, we'd be able at Wood Gulch to do as many as 20 holes for the same amount of money as we do the deep drilling. So a question, is there any plan to convert Golconda shares to free trading WEX shares? At this point, no, there is not. Golconda are very happy to continue to be the shareholders where they are. They're holding on to see this through either a sale process or ultimately taking it to production. We just had a board meeting about a month ago, and that was reconfirmed to management of the company. So question here, what 2025 initiative has the potential to be the biggest value add to the company? Boy, it's exploration, so you never know. You're one hole away from being a hero all the time in exploration. And you know, Wood Gulch has the potential to be transformational for the company. It had an open pit mine sitting on top of it and only 3 holes drilled around it that all hit mineralization. But that said, Doby George, 1 gram per ton at surface oxide deposit. As we move forward with that PEA, I think that has the potential to really surprise the market on what kind of value is hidden within Doby George. I don't see any further questions, but maybe we give 1 more minute. Is there any other questions? So I don't see any other questions. So I would like to thank everybody for attending our webinar. We plan on doing these on a more frequent basis going forward, especially around the mid to later part of the year when we're generating a lot of news flow. I apologize for a few technical glitches at the start, but we worked through those, and I'm happy to say that this webinar is very well attended, and we look forward to doing the next one. So thank you all for your time, and please always remember that Nicole and I are always available for any questions from any of our stakeholders, shareholders, investors, or interested parties. So please don't hesitate to reach out by either email or phone. And thank you very much for your time.